dangerous lesson from what communist China spawned in that lab, and it came from that lab, is that the American democracy seems extremely more vulnerable to disruption by viruses than other countries. We just, at the end of the day, you could quarterback this. We just did not handle that properly. And we were lied to. I mean, I go off on Fauci I don't know if you read my last book, the Taking Back Trump's America, but there's a scene in the Situation Room where I first meet Tony Fauci on January 28, 2020. Now, let's frame that, right?
January 28th, 2020.
6 weeks before all the shutdowns, 7 weeks before.
So Biden just took office, was sworn in 8 days prior.
No.
This is a year prior to that. January 2020.
2020.
Gotcha. This is the year.
This is January of the election year.
Yeah,
right.
Gotcha.
10 months before the election itself.
Exactly.
This is
2 months
before Biden came in.
This
2 months
is the
before
virus
COVID.
that would take down Trump. Okay. So I'm there. I wrote, here, check this out. 2006, in the coming China wars, I write that China is likely to create a virus that will kill millions. 2006. So when that stuff started coming in over the cable traffic, I'm looking at that in December, and it's like my antenna are up, right? And the boss sends me to the sit room on the 28th, and he says, get me the travel ban on China. We got to do that. And those people in that room are against it. It was Mulvaney running the room. He was the acting chief of staff.
Mick Mulvaney at the time?
Mick Mulvaney.
Republican chief of staff
yes,
for Trump.
He's chairing that meeting. I walk in there. I don't know any of these people from outside the White House, right? So who there?
Else was in that room?
Redfield from CDC and Fauci from NIH, right? Those were the two big players. I go in there, and within 6 minutes, I'm in a shouting match with that son of a bitch. And all he keeps saying is
Fauci.
With Fauci. I don't know who he is. Okay?
Literally don't even know who Fauci is.
Didn't know who he was. Didn't know he walked on water.
Wow.
Didn't know he killed tens of thousands of people during the AIDS epidemic and got away with it. That's another story. Don't know who he is. But, it's like somebody walks in here and sits down here. You don't know who he is, and you start interviewing him. What do? You take their measure, right? And my measure of Fauci was, this dude thinks he's a whole lot smarter than he is, and he's an arrogant son of a bitch.
This is within the first 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Sounds like an Antonio Brown interview.
And I'm, the one of the things I'm good at is taking the measure of people pretty quick. The boss is good at that too, Trump. And I'm thinking, what? And so I fight with this guy.
Wow.
Mulvaney, I'm fighting with him. Redfield comes in and supports Fauci, and we leave that meeting with Mulvaney tries to say, all right, we have a consensus, we're against the travel ban. I said, no, Mick. There's no friggin' consent. I just like it. No, Mick. There's no consensus in this room. And Pottinger finally says something. He's a National Security Council. And what I do that night is I go home and I write a memo that I'm going to plaster to the entire task force and broad chain that says that if we don't do this, this virus is capable of killing 500,000 Americans and costing us trillions of dollars. January 28, 2020. And that's about the best memo I've probably ever written because it was spot on. And here's the punchline. Fauci, when he was sitting there, that SOB knew for a fact that virus came from the Wuhan lab. He knew that because he had funded the gain-of-function research in that lab, and he had already begun to design a cover-up. And we know that from the emails he sent to a group of researchers, academics, trying to get their support to push that come-from-nature theory. And that's the biggest lie of omission in American history. Because if he had simply owned up to the fact that thing came from the lab, we could have pressured the Chinese to give us the genome sequence, which would have allowed us to design an effective vaccine rather than the crap we wound up getting. And again, Trump got lied to about that, not just by Fauci, but by Pfizer, the drug company.
In what way?
They didn't disclose the side effects of that. And they weren't clear with him. They made him think that it was a true vaccine when it's not. It's mRNA technology. And, you know, I worked with a guy named Dr. Robert Malone. You have him on the show sometime.
We had him.
Yeah. It's like the way, I mean, Malone was out there beforehand, but I had him on Steve Bannon's War Room when I was guest hosting. He sat kind of like you and me are sitting, Patrick. And we talked about all this and wound up writing a 3-part series in the Washington Times about how the universal vax policy would basically spawn mutations that would be more lethal. Oh, you don't have to get too much in that. But my point is that day, that January 28th day, was a very significant one, overlooked in the history of the pandemic and in American history, because Fauci was there. He opposed the president's travel ban. He lied to the American people by not disclosing right then what should have been his even if he didn't know that it came from the lab, he should have told us it might have come from the lab. And because he didn't do that, we didn't get the genome, we didn't get a thing. And Fauci goes on and sticks the knife in the back of the president throughout that election cycle. I told the boss to fire that SOB twice.
And what did Trump say when you told him that?
Well, the problem was I was the lone voice. And I don't blame him for not taking my advice in that. You know, I'm like the trade advisor, right? And he had, like, every time Fauci got into political trouble with Trump, Redfield, CDC, Steve Hahn, the head of the FDA, Azar, the head of the Health and Human Services, come to his rescue.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.